So welcome to another episode of the Pepper Soup Talk Show, where we bring to the table movers and shakers in the African diaspora. We have the pleasure of speaking today with Brittani Hunter, who is the founder of a company that's helping Black millennials secure the bag, and that is Mogul Millennials. And so we're going to let Brittani go ahead and introduce herself. But Brittani, it's a pleasure to have you today on Pepper Soup Talk.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the invitation. I'm happy to be here. So hey, y'all, I'm Brittani, and I'm the founder of Mogul Millennial. I'm a early stage startup founder that's based here in Dallas, and I'm pretty much just all about creating products and content and experiences that elevate the Black community. And so the first part in my journey of doing this is Mogul Millennial, and I've been working on Mogul Millennial now since 2019 as a full-time founder, but I started the company before then in my old job.
2019, cool. And you say you're out of the Dallas area. Are you originally from Dallas?
Yeah, born and raised. After high school, went to Kpis, which is an HBCU right outside of Houston. Did that, and then worked in the student housing space at UT Dallas, which is basically like a university north of Dallas. So worked there and still was in the Metroplex per se. But I'm a actual resident of Dallas since I've left that company.
Got you. That's cool to hear. You're our first guest from Dallas, and so. So I guess let's get into it. How did you start Mogul Millennial, and what inspired you to enter that space?
Yeah, so years ago when I was working at my old 9-to-5 in the student housing space, I had just gotten a promotion through my company, and so I went from managing around 5-6 people on average to now managing over 70 people. I was the only person that looked like me from a gender perspective, from a race perspective. And so that territory was just brand new. And so outside of that, I had a small business that I had just started in the e-commerce space. And so that business was, I was creating basically organic pet perfumes. I'm a dog mom, and so I was inspired by creating stuff for my dogs to just share with the world. But I was creating these organic dog like perfumes, and I was selling it through Etsy and through my website, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I wasn't doing well at all. So I had customers, but I wasn't really bringing in I wasn't bringing like a real profit. And so during this time, while trying to find content that I could relate to and learn from that could help me grow as a business leader, and also as an entrepreneur, I struggled with finding content. And so a lot of times, and I know you guys can probably attest, but mainstream media just simply overlooks us. They don't keep in mind of like the Black experience as it relates to career development and the corporate journey and entrepreneurship. And at that time, Black media was targeting our community with only like lifestyle, sports, daily news, gossip, media, like all those things. And so when I couldn't find what I was looking for that could help me grow in my career and business, I started writing about those type of topics on LinkedIn using their blog feature. And so from there, I started writing a lot of content about the Black experience and entrepreneurship and the corporate space, and quickly grew a large following. And then that's when I saw that, okay, I'm not the only one that in my community that wants this content as well. And yeah, from there, I just kept working on it. And a few years later, was able to quit my job to work on this full time.
Yeah, that's very cool to hear. It was kind of like you were scratching your own itch. It sounded like you were
absolutely.
And you started creating what you wanted to see yourself. But what was that process like? Did you know that you're gonna start Mogul Millennial from the jump, or was it kind of like you started writing these articles and putting out this content, and then that translated over to, you know what, I want to turn this into a company?
Yeah, no, good question. So no, not at all. Just to kind of piggyback a little bit, even so, I have a background in journalism, so I've always had a love for media. I actually wanted to work in media post-college, but saw what the starting salaries were, and I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to work in media anymore. But when I struggled finding content that I could relate to and learn from, the first idea wasn't to create Mogul Millennial. One thing I forgot to mention, I also did some freelance writing for a few others for a few other websites, like Excel Nicole. I did a little bit of writing for Ebony, Her Agenda, and a few other companies. And so I would essentially pitch some of my article ideas to them, and some of the ideas they would take and I was able to write them, but the ones that would get rejected, then I strongly felt in my heart that like, well, somebody needs to read it. So that's when I would took the rejected pitch ideas to LinkedIn. And I started seeing that people were resonating more with the rejected ideas versus the articles that would get published on those other sites that I would share.
Wow. Wow. I feel like there's a lot in there what you just said. The fact that I guess with one group of people that it didn't resonate, but it did with another. What made you decide to go the LinkedIn direction and say, let me try this on a different medium, or like feel like the content that this was something that was really needed because it was, but someone else may have said, you know what, this isn't resonating, or people, people aren't receptive to this. Let me not even.
Yeah. So I wouldn't even say that it didn't necessarily resonate with those other audiences, but it wasn't part of their content strategy. And so a lot of the sites that I was writing for, they may have career focused articles, or they may interview entrepreneurs, but it was more so like with the lifestyle aim. And I wasn't fully interested in writing with a more of a lifestyle type of centered approach. And so I believe that's probably why those ideas would get rejected, because it just wasn't a good fit for what they wanted to create for their target audience. And so even though like I really want to write about those topics anyway, I decided to go with LinkedIn because it's free to use. I already have an account. At that time, I was kind of documenting my career journey anyway in just like short form, long form posts. And so it just seemed like, okay, well, this is easy. I can just use their platform. I don't have to create a website. I don't even want to have a website that, it was just like, I want to basically get my ideas out, my thoughts out. Yeah. And then was that place for me.
Gotcha.
And so once you did mention you were able to quit your 9 to 5, am I correct? How hard was it to move from, just writing for fun to monetizing your papers? And how's that process and journey compared to just getting your work out there?
Yeah, so we actually didn't bring in consistent revenue until after I quit my job. So we had some advertising partners here and there, a few sponsors for some of the things that we had gone on for some of our content, but it wasn't consistent revenue. And so looking back, honestly, I don't know why I decided to still quit anyway. I think I was so happy to see that somebody was paying me for something. And so in my mind, I think I was thinking, oh crap, like I'm going to be a millionaire. Let me go ahead and start, getting my exit strategy together so I can quit, because obviously this is a great idea. But no, when I knew that I wanted to quit to work on this, quit to work on Mogul Millennial full time, I decided to, because I knew that number one, like people were writing me and DMing me, telling me your content really helped me. It helped me negotiate my salary. It helped me, just pitch investors perfectly or get to the next level in my fundraising process. And so I knew that the content was valuable. But in order to get to that place, even though we were basically still pre-revenue, I saved up money. Looking back, it wasn't enough money, but I saved up what I thought would be enough. And then once I had actually quit, I focused on just trying to find other areas of funding. And so, I applied for grants, applied for different accelerators. Eventually I got into an accelerator, but that didn't happen until like about a year later after going full time.
And this journey into full time, this was 2019?
So the idea for Mogul actually came in like 2015, 2016. Okay. I didn't really start working on it seriously until around like 2017.
Okay.
My last day, or I put in my notice for work in December 2018. I gave my job a month notice because I knew my job, it's hard to just hire for that role, period, in the area we were in. And so my last day was that following month at the start of the year.
Okay.
So yeah, roughly about what is that? A little over a year once I started working on it seriously.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs who decide to take that step or that jump into working on the venture full time. Is it's a leap of faith, and it's also something that looks a little different for everyone. And you mentioned having some savings, and but it's like, I'm sure during that time there was a lot to figure out too. Can you take us through what that was like emotionally, being in that place where you have left your job and you're working on this venture full time, and you have and even like talk about some of the sources of what that revenue looked like. Was it ad revenue that you're monetizing through? Can you paint that picture a little bit for us?
Yeah, so those first couple months up until that year when we joined the Accelerator, it was extremely hard. I think coming out, I was very naive for sure. I think I was just really excited. I mean, I had some money in the bank. My old job, because I had built a great relationship with them, they continued to pay me for a little over a month after I left. And so, I think looking back, it helped, but I wish I didn't do that because I wasn't technically, it wasn't the same as if, you quit your job and then, bam, you're done. Your last check will come the following week or the same week. I kept getting paid. And so I think it took a while for me to get out of that mindset or get to the mindset where like, hey, you don't have a fallback plan. If you don't actually bring in money yourself, what are you going to do? You literally won't be able to eat. And so, eventually I did run out of money. And so I had to find creative ways to bring in cash. And so I did like several things. Like I mentioned before I had started doing like a lot of writing on LinkedIn, I was documenting my career journey. I had a really, really engaged audience on LinkedIn. And so from time to time, people would like reach out to me, ask me to like redo their profile or give them tips on their profile. And so I started like basically a LinkedIn profile makeover side gig. And so that was like my side hustle as I was trying to grow Mogul. But looking back, like early or for that first year, I was focused on like definitely the wrong thing. I was focused on user growth, which is good, but not enough on like actual like the revenue model, like the business model. So I tell entrepreneurs all the time, before you quit your job, like definitely make sure that your revenue is consistent. But if you make the same mistake that I did, or I don't want to call it a mistake, or to me it was a mistake, but if you make the same decision that I did, then, right out the door, you need to be focused on revenue. Revenue means everything. If you make enough money, then you can hire a team and you can, do whatever you need to do to help, build that customer base. But I focused very, very heavily in the beginning on our customers. And for me, what I identified as a customer at that time was the amount of users. And so I think that I was trying to compete from a media perspective with companies that didn't make sense to compete with. So I would look at like, the larger media companies and, they're reaching millions of people every month, and we weren't. And so in my mind, I needed to just like, okay, well, let me try to get out as many articles as I can. So I'm like writing articles, scheduling social media posts, trying to reach as many people, but there wasn't like an actual like paying product that I was making money from. And so it was definitely hard. I think once I ran out of money, that's when I realized, okay, well, you need to focus on user growth, but you need to just prioritize and dedicate so much time to that, so much time to test now business models and actually like, either charging those users or talking to like people that will pay you. And so to answer your question that you mentioned earlier, the ways that we were making money then was through advertising. On our website, we don't do like any traditional display ads or anything like that. And so we were making money by through native advertising avenues. And then also we had people that will like sponsor our newsletter, and they would also just sponsor like content series on the website as well.
Got you. That's cool. And then I know you mentioned you went into an accelerator program, and then what the business model looked like as you move forward started to shift. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the accelerator I went through was Snapchat's accelerator, which is called Yellow. I
Okay.
think, yeah, they're probably, I think, gearing up for their fifth or maybe sixth cohort. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. But I went through that in 2020. And during that time, I basically learned a lot from them about like how to like build media products, how to think about your customers, how to think about your actual users, learned that there's like a huge difference. And so learned a lot from them. And then after I finished the accelerator, that's when I started testing out some of our business models. And so our revenue models. And so some of the ways that we make money now is still through native advertising. We have a host of different newsletters. And so newsletters is a good portion of our business right now. And so, for example, brands can work with us to like sponsor a newsletter series. We have different newsletter series that covers various topics in entrepreneurship or career development, but as it relates to the Black experience. And then we also like just provide like other ways that they can advertise or just be a part of our newsletter period. Other than that, we have a job board. We have a few different databases as well that they can either sponsor or advertise in. And then we just started doing events earlier this year. We had our very first large scale event. And so we've made money also through sponsorships.
That's all very helpful to know for ourselves and for the audience too, because you look at some of these media companies and you definitely wonder when you peel back the curtain. Okay, how you hear about advertisements as one way to generate revenue, but then you mentioned these other avenues too, like the newsletters and some of these other streams, events, and other ways that you can also look into also.
Now, being in media, you definitely, I think, period, with any business, but especially in media, you have to have more than one model. You can't just like rely only on advertisers.
And then you mentioned you started writing in 2015, and then you started to take it serious in 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
2017. Okay. What happened within that time period to shift gears from this is a hobby to I gotta, get on my stuff to get this done?
Yeah, the feedback that I was getting from the audience, I think that's really what inspired that upcoming transition. And so at that time, like now we do a lot of surveys for our audience, either through social media or just we send out surveys in our newsletter. But before then, I wasn't surveying our readers or our newsletter subscribers to see how they felt about X, Y, Z topic. I think I just made assumptions based off of the data. But people were basically giving me, like, they were just volunteering their feedback and hearing how people were like resonating with our content and how much it helped. That definitely was inspiration. And then I want to say around like right before I had right before I had decided to go and take this serious, that's when Blavity had raised quite a bit of money, or they raised their seed round. I don't think they had raised all the money yet, but that inspired me as well. Just seeing another like Black media company that's not a legacy brand that has raised, venture funding, and they've been able to scale and acquire the companies. And so that also like inspired me and show me that like, hey, you can also, if Blavity can do it, you can do it. You can, just do something just as big in the media space.
And then with your content, it's sort of a journey or a story you're going through in life, and it kind of is reflected in what you're producing in Mogul Media. Can you kind of highlight how it was, let's say 2015, to how it is now, from being a 9-to-5er to an entrepreneur, and how that content is being resonated or felt with your customer base now?
Are you asking like how our content has like evolved over the years? Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't do, so like right before I decided to go full time, or right before I had quit, I started bringing on writers because I knew that like my perspective couldn't be the only perspective. And then we also started doing more interviews on the website. And so our target audience hasn't necessarily changed. And so if anything, I would say the way that we've evolved is just by bringing on more opinions and thoughts and just thought leaders onto the space. When I first launched Mogul, like I mentioned earlier, I did all the writing. A lot of the content just derived from research that I was doing. And so that's how I was able to validate some of the things that I was saying. Over time, I brought in writers. And so using their experiences, the writers that I would bring on, they had, they were mid-level to senior level professionals. They also were small business owners. And so they were able to give good perspectives. And then from there, like over time, when we got bigger, we were able to bring on real, not real, because not saying that other people weren't real, but like other thought leaders. So like, for example, we've had the founder of one of the co-founders from Squire come on and talk about pitching. We had the founder of Calendly come on and talk about his entrepreneurial journey. We've had several different people in the corporate and startup space that have been able to share. And so I think that's pretty much how it's evolved. The bigger we've gotten, we've been able to basically is just become even more legitimate by bringing on people that have more weight in the space or more weight in the game.
And just one more thing. So with your experience, what's some of the most useful information your audience or your customer said they have received from you?
The most useful, definitely the pitching advice. And so in regards to our entrepreneurship audience, a lot of those people, they are preparing to pitch investors. And so they may either be pre-revenue or they just, turn the light on or turn the wheel on their revenue model. And so now they want to raise funding so that way they can scale their business. And so any type of article around pitching, around like how to look at metrics, growth strategies, those type of articles is what I've noticed resonate the most. Even the audience that are not like actual founders in this present day, I've noticed that they still engage with those articles a lot because they want to start a business one day, or they've had the idea of potentially getting into the entrepreneurship space.
On that note of funding, you mentioned Blavity and being inspired by their funding round. And for Mogul Millennial, what has been the route that you guys have taken down? Have you gone down that route of raising money? Has it been bootstrapped, and what has that journey looked like as far as the funding side goes?
So we've been blessed to be able to get a few grants from different organizations. When we went through the Jollof Accelerator, we received an investment from them. So we raised a little bit of money from them, and then outside of that, we've been bootstrapped. Got
you. Yeah, and I know that the bootstrap life, you got to be real efficient with the numbers to make it work. Can you talk about some of the systems that you've had to put in place in order to make sure that that you guys have been able to kind of keep that runway going and keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, well, to me, I think really what bootstrap is just you don't go out and get investors. And so for us, what that has been is just we're focused on revenue. And so user growth is still definitely, important because you have to have users in order to make money, right? But what has been like our main focus is just revenue. And so, I create KPIs every quarter. I review those KPIs every single week. And so that kind of keeps me grounded and keeps us focused on like what the end goal is. I meet with my team weekly. And so we make sure that we're moving in the right direction. We do a lot of sprints. And so if one idea isn't working, we quickly pivot. That's the beauty of having a small teams, because we can just move when we want to, however we want to move and how fast we want to move. So a lot of pivots, reviewing goals and reviewing KPIs weekly, if needed, reestablishing them every quarter. So we make them every quarter. And then, like I mentioned earlier, just being just extremely focused on what will actually make money. And sometimes we do things that don't, but it's because it can lead to that eventually. And so we're
That's cool.
And so you talk about KPIs. I'm not as familiar with the space with media and what kind of KPI they track. And just being new to the space, how do you know what's a true KPI versus a false KPI? if that makes sense.
Yeah, try it, and if it doesn't work, you move on. That's honestly the best. So, depending on what you decide, what kind of KPI you want to create and track, whether it's media or another space, I think it'll just vary from company to company based off of what your goals are at that moment, your short-term and long-term goals. And so for us, I know for like companies that are larger and have more money in the bank per se, they'll probably review their KPIs like monthly or every quarter. But since we're still small, we set them for every quarter, and then we review them every single week. So on Fridays, that's my day. I review them and just to make sure that we're still on the same pace. And if not, we scrap it. I don't try to make a brand new KPI. I normally have around 3 to 4 each month. Let's say if I scrap 2 because I'm not moving in the direction I need to move, I don't try to create 2 new ones. I just wait until the next quarter, and then I just zone in on those remaining.
Sure. This is all really good information, by the way. I'd like to thank everyone for being with us on Pepper Soup Talk. We're here with Brittani Hunter, and she's giving us all the game on how she's running her company, Mogul Millennial. So I guess shifting the pace a little bit, Brittani, can you talk a little bit about sort of what your vision is for Mogul Millennial, and kind of like where it is that you want to take this ultimately? You mentioned, for example, companies like Blavity. You mentioned like some of these legacy media companies that exist. And when you look at Mogul Millennial and sort of what you've set out to do, like where is it that you want to take this?
Yeah, so I like to tell people that it feels like I just launched this company. I just went full time, especially since we really just started making money not too long ago. It was just 2020 when we went through that accelerator, and it's what 2020 now. And so right now, in the long-term speaking, in long-term for me, when I'm speaking of this, I'm thinking of the next like 3 to 5 years. What our goal is to just go harder in our content. We've seen a lot of promising growth in our newsletters. And so we want to push out more newsletter content, more just newsletters, period. And then also I have a very small team. And so I'm looking at growing my team in the near future. So bringing on somebody in sales, hiring some of our developers and working with them, being able to work with them on a more like full-time basis. And so working with them, just doing a lot of marketing. So hiring some social media folks as well. And then also bringing on more like topic focused writers. And so writers that are focused on like one specific topic at hand. So that way we can really like get to the nitty gritty on some of the things and go into like better detail. And then from there, we have, like I mentioned, we have different events. We have our first large scale event that we had over 1,100 people registered at the event that we had this past January called Pitch Your Founder, which is was a reverse demo day. And so we're going to be doing that event twice a year. And we're also working on something pretty cool for our corporate folks. So just pushing out more events as well.
It's cool. So, we had a chance to take a look at your website. It's very chic and sleek, and we loved it. And know that you focused on different aspects of Black and Brown professionals. You mentioned pitching. That's something that a lot of your readers really like to see. But what are some of the other topics that you guys focus on? They notice resonates well with your audience.
Let me think. Customer acquisition is another one. Just the journey of getting customers. That's another topic I know that has done really well. We have an article by the founder, what's that company? Scully. And that one is one of our most highest performing articles to date. I think the article was published maybe a year and a half ago. And so that one has done tremendously well. But what else comes to mind? So earlier I mentioned growth strategies, pitching. Let me think. In regards to the corporate folks, any article on like just developing leadership skills, from like hard skills and soft skills, those also tend to do pretty well.
Mm.
So you mentioned this, like agile methodology a couple times. So you do say you have developers and you're agile. How has that impacted your system or operation when working on your company? And was that something you always focused on?
Bringing on the developer team?
Oh no, using the agile system.
I'm not following more.
The sprints.
So you say you work in sprints and you work very agilely.
So it's in regards to the sprints, it can be something as simple as, let's say we want to start a newsletter series, or not newsletter series. We want to start a content series about, I don't know, Black male podcasters. And we want to see, ideally we want to talk about this for the whole year, but just to test it out to see people even like it, we're going to just try it out for 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, go hard with the content, bring on the best, the most popular, the most influential Black male podcasters, and see what happens. And so maybe that may mean, for that month period or that month sprint, they may mean like 2 articles, a few different social media series, and then maybe like 1 dedicated newsletter. And so that's what I mean by sprints. And so not necessarily with the developers that we work with. The developers that we work with is more so for like updates on the site. When we have some cool things coming up with our databases, and also just the way that people can opt into our newsletters. And so I work with the developers more so for like those type of things, but the sprints is more so like for like the content itself.
Gotcha. So this brings me to my second question. So I know there's a lot of, tech advances, with the 2020 that made it move rapidly. Is there any kind of incorporating tech into your system or your media posts?
So the databases, we use a lot of no-code tools as well. And so even though I have a developer team, sometimes if I want to just get stuff done more quickly, or just like random ideas that I have, since I'm not technical, I'll utilize different no-code tools and softwares. But so that's how we've been able to incorporate different technologies other than like our CMS, of course. And so our database right now, we house it using Notion, but we're moving away to like a different type of software. It's going to be, I guess what the term will be is considered low code. And so we're using a no code platform, but my developer, he's incorporating some things that the no code platform doesn't offer, but that he can easily do with just writing a few lines of code.
On that same note on productivity, I'm getting a lot of productivity vibes from you. Can you talk about some of the, you just mentioned Notion and no code. Can you talk about this in general, like what have been productivity tools that have been most helpful for you and in your company?
Yeah. So Notion is where we have our database right now. I know a lot of people use it for like, just like organizing different things in their company. I don't use it for that. I definitely see how it can be valuable. I just haven't got there yet, but I highly recommend that people look into it because it's already been, co-signed for that people use Notion for that. I use Asana just for like my daily keeps me centered, has everything that we need to work on. Our KPIs are in there, my to-do list, things like that. Other tools that I swear by is Zapier. It's one of my favorite tools, period. So I use that pretty much for everything. And then, different, right now we use Drip for email marketing, but in the past I've used MailChimp, I use ConvertKit. Honestly, they're all great. And so those are some of the other tools that we use, like in regards to like tech tools that keep us centered.
Got you. This is just on my mind. So I have to bring this up. It's completely unrelated. You mentioned Black male podcasts, and I'm curious, what is your take on Black male podcasts? Because I was reading something on Twitter the other day, and it said a Black man would rather start a podcast than go to therapy. or something like that.
It is silly. Who said that? Oh my God. No, I mean, I think anybody should be able to start a podcast, no matter, your gender, your race, like you should be able to. So, I don't know. I don't really have like a big take on it, or a negative take. I think that tweet is crazy, whoever said that, but, I think however you want to express yourself in whichever way that you want to be creative, I think that you should do it with podcasts, a mini TV series or something like that, or a YouTube series, or if you're writing, whatever it is, or if you want to tweet all day and that's the way that's your creative outlet, like whatever it is that makes sense for you, you should do it. But no, Black Male Pocket, like that person is crazy. Whoever said that.
No, we appreciate your response. I think the tweet was there's like an ongoing tweet. There's these ongoing tweets where you see people tweet about things Black men rather do than go to therapy, and so
they added that in.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So back to back to Mogul Millennial. 2020, we had a pandemic, and so we know you're running a digital company, and so I'm curious, like, what was that like continuing to run Mogul Millennial during the pandemic? And we know that was when you also went through your accelerator program. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so at that time, the Accelerator started out being in person. Halfway through, we went virtual because of the pandemic. And it was actually fine. I think Yellow or Snap, they did a really, really great job in making sure that our programming was still on point, that we still had all the incredible speakers that we were going to have. It was different. Instead of going to them, we were talking in person, we had to do it through Zoom or through like another platform. And so that part was fine. It was just different to try to navigate through. And I mean, it was a little disappointing because I have friends that have went through accelerators, and I've heard about how you can build all these cool relationships with people. Maybe after the workday, y'all go hang out, and it's different being in person versus virtual. And there were like a lot of cool people from literally all over the world that was a part of my cohort. And so it kind of sucked that after a little over a month, we were now back in all of our own respective cities or countries, because there were some people outside of the US that were part of it. But other than that, once we were able to navigate all of that, and I was able to figure out, okay, well, what is normal life for me then? It wasn't necessarily like a big difference in regards to my business, because remember, that's when we had just started testing out revenue models more consistently. And so at that time, I did try to raise around. I was pitching investors. Basically, they were saying that we were too early. And so then I knew that for me, what I need to focus on is revenue and user growth, because I knew that if we had the revenue to show, and then also, as a cherry on top, the users, then you wouldn't be able to say no, because we're a hot company. You want to be a part of it. And so, so from that point, I just started basically testing out different revenue models. And so that was, I think, what was a change, but it wasn't something negative or anything that we had to just kind of change up our whole process, because we were basically, it was something new for us, period. It wasn't like we were going to pivot and do something different because of the pandemic.
Gotcha. And it sounds like you were trying different things out during that time also. Yeah.
And our team has always been remote, so that, yeah.
Gotcha. So it sounds like Mogul Millennial is an example of a pandemic-proof company.
I guess so. Yeah. No, it didn't necessarily hurt us or help. I mean, of course, it was that stress from just dealing with the pandemic that didn't help. But I think outside of that, it was pretty much normal. We were just trying to focus on okay, well, how can we make money as a business?
I know you mentioned that you have a background in journalism, and I'm sure that skill set has really translated and been very helpful for what you're doing with Mogul Millennial, given that you do a lot of articles and it involves a lot of writing. For entrepreneurs who, let's say, start something in that same kind of vein that involves writing or it's a media space, what advice do you have for those entrepreneurs who maybe don't have a background in journalism and want to start something like Mogul Millennial?
So my background in journalism was because I studied journalism. So after college, I didn't work in journalism. I had, outside of freelance writing for a few companies here and there, that was pretty much the stint of it. And so, I went back to what I studied back in undergrad. And so because of that, you don't have to have a degree in journalism at all to launch a media company. I think if anything, you just need to be a creative person, and just have a lot of thick skin, because media is hard, very, very hard to not only just get it. Well, it's easy to get into. Anything is easy to launch, but it's hard to just to sustain. And so I think as long as you have like a really great work ethic and you can understand that things will take time, sometimes you got to figure out like, where your sweet spot is at. You really need to just learn how to get to know your customers as much as possible. I think in media, you really have to get to know them, because it's incredibly hard to just make consistent revenue until you fully like tested out all the waters and you know exactly what makes sense for you and your particular media business.
And one final question, at least on my end. So after, jumping into this entrepreneur mission full time, we see people right after their success, but we don't really see the journey. And I know for every story, there's always some rough patches. So what kind of things did you go through or you had to overcome in order to be where you are now? And how would you advise entrepreneurs looking to come into the space how to be better prepared for the journey you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, two quick things. Number one, just the money issues. And so I think I may have mentioned earlier, but I definitely recommend that every entrepreneur, especially like if you're a Black entrepreneur, you should be making money consistently or have a clear vision of how you actually can, and once you turn that revenue model on. And so that's definitely like one of the biggest challenges I went through, because when you're just like strapped for cash and you become desperate, and I think you just start like throwing random darts at the wall, just trying to hit something. And that doesn't, I mean, it's not helpful. It may give you like a few early wins, but it's not good for like long-term growth or real growth, in my opinion. And so that's one thing that I went through. And then the other thing I would say was a struggle was just basically letting my ego get in the way. And so, I believe that like all Black products and software or whatever it is, websites should be absolutely beautiful, user-friendly. As we all know, there's this notion that if it's Black, it's something wrong with it. People, I think, want to expect that it's not as solid as it should be. And so I've always said that like with Mogul, everything is going to be like A1. And so because of that, I think that there's been times where I've taken too long to actually like launch something or just turn the wheels on something. And so that's something that I had to like kind of get out of my head, is that as a startup, you should be moving fast. You have to move fast, learn from it, and then pivot, but it shouldn't take you like months or years to actually like launch something.
So we have a couple questions that we like to close out our interviews with. One of those questions for you is around your younger self. Like if you're talking to the younger Brittani before you went ahead and started Mogul Millennial, and knowing the ups and downs you go through, you talk about some of the challenges, let's say with revenue or the financial aspect of things in the beginning and whatnot. Can you what would you tell that younger Brittani? What would you tell her, like comfort her, and like, what advice would you give her, knowing the ups and downs that you go through working on Mogul Millennial?
Yeah, no, I would definitely tell her to, I believe that when you're given a vision or this idea in your head, it's meant for you, like it's legit meant for you, like it just doesn't come out of nowhere. And so to know that, you're capable, this was given to you for a reason. And so you're supposed to do it. And so you shouldn't like shy away from it or feel intimidated in the process. Like this was given to you for a reason and it's yours already. So you just have to like, just start working towards it. And so I think I would tell myself that. And I think that, if I could have told myself that, I think that would have encouraged me to just keep going, even when like times were hard, or I didn't think that like I could actually like, maybe quit my job and go full time. And, I didn't believe that I could actually get people to come to our website every single month or open up our newsletters. I think that I would tell myself then, like, you already have the prize. You just have to like start working towards it, go find it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say that you've given us a lot of practical information that I think is very applicable to anyone running a business, especially if you're in the media space. So definitely wanted to give a shout out to you for the great work that you're doing, and we're excited to follow your journey from here on out and see where take Mogul Millennial. But before we close, I got one more question for you. I'm not sure. Have you ever had jollof rice?
I have not.
You not had jollof rice?
No.
Okay. Because I was just about to ask you what your favorite kind of jollof is. But
well, I have Nigerian friends, so I'm gonna say Nigerian.
There we go. You made it easy for us. Toby and I are both Nigerian. So.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
Yeah. So that's that. And where can people kind of follow along and stay tuned with your journey?
Yeah. So they can follow, my company at Mogul Millennial on all platforms, and they can follow me at Brittani L. Hunter on all platforms. And my name is spelled Brittani with an I, A-N-I.
Cool. So this has been Kpis Soup Talk. We're here with Brittani Hunter, Mogul Millennial, and we will be back at you next time.